a new operating system for leadership, more so for early stage entrepreneurs and startup founders. What is this new operating system for leadership that you have developed?
There is hardly a session around ethical leadership, and we see so many fiascos around us, and many of the fiascos are around the startups which were very well respected in the society, which became big and then they failed. And more often than not, there were ethical blind spots where people were failing. Sure, Anshumanji. And before that, if you allow, I just want to start with a Gayatri mantra with all of
Please.
us, right? For this
Yeah.
beautiful meeting that you're conducting. So, Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodaya.
Tell the meaning of this Gayatri mantra that we have been listening, reciting for so long to my American viewers.
Sure. So Gayatri mantra is string of 24 syllables, where the entire intent of this mantra is to develop the discerning wisdom amongst everyone. It is not restricted to a region, religion, caste, sex, creed. It's something called as sarvabhaumik in Hindi, which means it is applicable to all. And if we see our lives, and every point, and I'll try to tell it in a very layman's term, Anshumanji. At every moment we have two choices, right? Like, let's say if I'm talking to you, I have a choice of being disrespectful, and then I also have a choice of being respectful. When I was coming to your podcast, I had the choice of not being there on time, and I had the choice to come there 5-10 minutes earlier, right? So I have the choice of waking up early in the morning and going to the park, and I have a choice of waking up late in the morning and just tying my laces and rushing to the office. So we always have two choices, right? One is the right choice, and one is not such a right choice. Gayatri mantra is a mantra which helps us to move in these right choices. That's the essence of Gayatri mantra, which in Hindi we called as Sadbuddhi, or discerning wisdom. So that, in a nutshell, would be about Gayatri mantra. If I really want to go into details, it is so huge that in India, every luminary that you've heard about, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, Maharshi Arvind, Pandit Shriram Sharma Acharya, Jagat Guru Shankaracharya, everyone, they say that this is the mantra. This is the mantra. So there is a big science behind Gayatri mantra. Lots and lots of books have been written about it. I'm very small to even speak about it, but so this is how I understand and practice Gayatri mantra daily in my life.
So let's go back to Jhansi and start your journey from there.
Sure. So Jhansi, place very, which I would say entire India is fond of. We have Jhansi ki Rani from that place.
Yes.
One of the first for women leader, and that too in early mid 19th century. So I'm very proud to be, be from that city, and my ancestors are also from that city. So my early years were in Jhansi, first 2, 3, 4 years. And then, we gradually shifted to a few other cities like Raigad, and then eventually came to Delhi. So we came to Delhi in early 1980s. I did my entire schooling in Delhi, uh, in the Mothers International School. And that is a school that is run by the Sri Aurobindo Society. So that spiritual connection was there something from the beginning. Secondly, both my parents are from All World Gayatri Parivar. So in a way, my birthplace is Jhansi, and my birth in terms of culture is All World Gayatri Parivar. So I am a part of that since birth. I did my schooling from Mothers International School, and then I did my BTech from IIT Delhi in civil engineering. And post that, I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta. And then after that, I've been into the corporate life for most of my tenure. During that corporate life, I also had that fascination of going into entrepreneurship, and the seeds of entrepreneurship and Shumanji that were laid while I was preparing for my ITJ. So
Mhm.
I had read, I think, one book where Mr. Goddard had, kind of came about with some pointers or some goals for his life. He was the, person behind the rocket. So, I also thought that, I should have a few goals in my life, and that I should definitely work towards. So, one of the goals was to be an entrepreneur, and not only to be an entrepreneur, but rather be someone who is responsible for generating employment for lakhs and millions of people. So that was the driving thought. So taking that thought into consideration, I uh, had my own own entrepreneurship unit called Reniso, which I've co-founded with my co-founder Nishit Sharma in 2017, and we ran it for a few years. And it was about end-to-end property management for people who were living away from their property. Apart from that, I've had stints at JP Morgan in New York and London, in Lanco in India, in Rivigo, which was a logistics startup, and which really reignited the the part in me that wanted to do something. And then being in
Mhm.
the startup ecosystem again at Oyo, where I was looking after the UK and Latin American portfolio, and then post that coming into the InfoEdge umbrella at 99 acres, where I was looking after the rental business, heading it for entire India.
Mhm.
So this has been my journey. Last part of my corporate journey was being a CEO at AltoView, which was into creating AR-enabled theme parks solutions for various government of India, projects.
Great. So, because you started a startup in the
Hmm.
rental property management, so that experience led you to the other rental property and the property related career
Yes,
that you chose.
yes,
Be it
yes.
the OYO or be it the 99 acres, correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one more reason, Anshumanji, why we chose to go into that field of Reniso was that there were two ideas. One was obviously the commercial one, which was end-to-end property management for people who are living away from the property. So let's say if you're living in US or living in UK or Middle East or Southeast Asia, and you have a property in Delhi or Mumbai or Hyderabad or Bangalore, and you've taken it for investment, typically it's very easy for you to manage your equity investments, right? Or let's say other liquid investments, but property you're not able to manage because
Mhm.
you need to rent it out, you need to sell it, you need to renovate it, you need to do the maintenance, and you're living thousands of miles away. So people generally keep their property locked. So we realize that in the apartment societies, 20 to 30% of the properties are locked, and this gives us a huge market where we can be the trustworthy solution, and open up those properties, manage them, and help the people get the rental return. So that was the idea, but that was one idea. The second idea, and something which was more close to my heart, was as I said earlier, I wanted to do something which benefits a lot of people in the society per se. And here, when we were looking at the idea of property management, we saw that there are so many homemakers and senior citizens in India who
Mhm.
typically are who do not really have to do any work. They have money, right? But what they
Mhm.
don't have is engagement. And they are people who are well mannered, well educated, who have time. And if there is some form of an engagement, they will be happy to do it. And now property management is something which is a very localized thing, right? It's not an online
Mhm.
sort of business. If you're living in Dwarka and Delhi, then you're living in Dwarka. If you're going to Gurgaon, it will take you 40 minutes. If you're going to Noida, it will take you 1 hour 15 minutes. So people in Dwarka can manage the properties in Dwarka, right? So what we started was a business partner network where we included only the senior citizens and homemakers, right? And we asked them to come to our platform and look at the various things things that we are doing: regular inspection of the properties, sometimes maintenance checks, sometimes showing the properties, sometimes just supervising the renovation and all. And believe me, people were so happy. And we did it the Indian way. I mean, I'll tell you, there were a few people who were 70, 74 years old. And when they used to go for the property inspection, the tenant used to say ki, sir, please sit down. You do the inspection later. पहले आप चाय लीजिए. Take the tea from me first. We used to have those kind of relationships, right? When they used to come to our office, I used to touch their feet. It was no longer a commercial relationship. And maybe one part which kind of gave me a lot of mental satisfaction, because as and when the model would scale out in future, this ecosystem would be benefited. So this, I mean, if I were to say, the essence of startup or the essence of entrepreneurship for me was not money per se. It was obviously an idea that could scale, but an idea which would obviously benefit a lot of people in a very empathetic manner. So that was the
Yeah.
story of the startup.
So now,
Sure.
you have created a new operating system for leadership,
Mm,
more so
mm,
for early stage entrepreneurs and startup founders. And you
right.
did a TED talk related to that. So, what I also feel that the modern startup ecosystem faces speed. Everything is speed in there, right? Without
Mm,
stability. So,
mm,
burnout, distrust, ethical blind spots,
mm,
profit over everything.
mm.
What is this new operating system for leadership that you have developed?
Sure, sure. So Anshumanji, before I start on this now, so I'll also tell you, I've been interacting with a lot of incubators and accelerators in India, right? And taking various sessions. So one thing that I realized was that, whenever, there is a mentorship session, or let's say there is a workshop or anything, it's always about a few things, UI, UX, product and marketing, GTM, how to raise funds, sales strategy, revenue strategy, things around that, right? And what I also realized was that there is hardly a session around ethical leadership, right?
Mhm.
And so this got me into thinking that, how are we doing on that front? So that was one. And second, we all are living in a business world, and we see so many fiascos around us, right? And many of the fiascos are around the startups which were very well respected in the society, which became big, and then they failed. So what I did was I just combined both of these things together, and I said, "Ki, what is the core reason why these startups are failing? What is the core reason?" And in more often than not, you know, there were ethical blind spots where people were failing. So let's say if there is a firm which started off with a very good intention in logistics, right? But somewhere down the line, there was a decision, as we discussed in the starting of this session, right? There was a series of decisions that were needed to be made, right? And there were few of them were right and few of them were wrong. And slowly and gradually, later on, the not so wise decisions were taken, and the company kind of busted. It might so so then why was this happening? Why was this happening? And so what at least I kind of learned, or I kind of understood, is that there is a much deeper reason to it. The reason is that the entire startup ecosystem or the business ecosystem, or maybe the most of the startup ecosystem and business ecosystem, is working on a mindset, right? That mindset had come from the industrial revolution, and where the
Mhm.
mindset is, if I were to say, number one, profit, lots of profit, right? Some input, maximum output, profit making, profit maximization, which is fine, absolutely. Second, the mindset was a mindset of extraction, right? You
Mhm.
kind of continuously extract. You extract out of people, you extract out of nature, you extract out of anything to everything. We start our economy class with the raw materials, right?
Mhm.
So that was the mindset of extraction. And third, there was it was about me and, let's say, my firm or my people, my incorporation. There was no sense of everyone. uh, like in India we say, right, Vasudev Kutumbakam. But in this there is no sense of everyone. So there is a person, there is a team, and there is a business, which means that there is no element of sustainability. So these three
Mm-hmm.
elements kind of came out: lack of sustainability, profit maximization, and extraction mindset. And so, and because of this, it became very clear that giving any message that, this is how businesses need to run, or that is how businesses need to run, will fall on deaf ears. Because if that is the OS, operating system, if that is the mindset, then anything which comes in this ecosystem will go into that direction, right? I might start with a very good intent. I'll give you my example. I
Mm-hmm.
might start with a very good intent of Reniso, that, I'll serve the society, and I'll uh, millions of homemakers. But sooner or later, because I'm enmeshed in that ecosystem, I will try to, maximize my profit. I'll try to
Mm-hmm.
shortchange them. I'll try to do many things which might be legal on paper, but that's how the story goes. And
Mm-hmm.
now, where have we come because of this story? Right now, Anshumanji, we've made so much stride in healthcare, but the number of patients in the world is at its peak, right? The health
Yes.
issues are the maximum. We've created so many, firms and so many platforms to connect people, but depression and loneliness is at an all-time peak, right? That's there, right? So, and you will see so many contradictions. So combining all of these things together, it just came to the front that, if something has to be changed, it has to be the entire operating system here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise all the changes will be on the fringe. So this
Right.
operating system is something that, maybe subconsciously the quest was in the mind. And then, as I told you, I am a part of All World Gayatri Parivar. Pandit Shri Ram Sharma Acharya ji has written 3,200 plus books, and I am a avid reader since my birth. So, so in many of the books, he had referred to a concept of Samajhdari, Imandari, Zimmedari, Bahaduri, which comes from the tenets of Gayatri Mantra. So, Gayatri, for
Mm-hmm.
all the viewers, is the foundational pillar of India. Gayatri is called the mother of Indian culture, and Yajna is called the father of Indian culture, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Gayatri is about good thoughts, and Yajna is about good actions. Both of these together, are there for a better world. So, these four tenets were coming out from Gayatri Mantra. And, I just looked at them uh, from the lens of business, that if these four terms, if they are applied into the business mindset, can it provide the panacea that we are looking forward to?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of mentally tried it on, taking up various cases, and at every time, it proved to be true. So that is how, with myself and along with certain discussions with the Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya in Haridwar, some professors there, we came out with this model of BIZS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which can be applied as a leadership principle, and for any business or any entrepreneur. And to come back to your question, Anshumanji, why a revolution, why an evolution, why not a revolution? Is that revolution is something, which is takes to you to the next orbital, right? Like, it takes you to the next level. But evolution is something that if you don't evolve, you get extinct. So right now, I believe the phase where we are in the world, the kind of uh, uh, the, the kind of havoc that is all around us in terms of, people not being happy, people being stressed out, the kind of inequality and everything. We are at a very, very critical point, physically, mentally, emotionally. And if it goes on this way, then we do not have many, many decades to survive, right? From a raw material point of view, from an emotional point of view, from, any point of view. So therefore, we called it a evolution, not a revolution. So this is
Mm-hmm.
how BIZS came about as something which is an evolution and which is something that can be implemented by all the professionals and by all the founders in making a better world.
Thanks, Alok, for that. So let's talk about BIZS
Hmm.
a little more. So Bahaduri, courage to take hard, righteous decision.
Right.
Imandari, integrity inside out. Truth in commitments, transparency in action. Truth in commitments and transparency in action.
Hmm.
Zimmedari, responsibility towards team, customer, society, and ecology, and Samajhdari, long-term thinking and inner clarity. Uh,
Right.
Give me examples of each. Let's
Hmm.
take a case study of a company that you ran on
Hmm.
these ethos, or a company that you are guiding today, and
Hmm.
they are implementing Bahaduri, Imandari, Zimmedari, and Samajhdari.
Right. Right. So let me start, with Bahaduri, which is
Yeah.
uh, fearlessness, righteous fearlessness, right?
Yes.
Many a times that fearlessness requires us to say yes, and many a times that fearlessness requires us to say no. Now, let me just relate a few business examples here. So, Anshumanji, when we were running Reniso, we had raised 2 rounds of funding. We were there to raise our third round of funding, and it was a very, very critical moment for us, as entrepreneurs. And somewhere down the line, there was not much investment happening at that time in the prop tech firms in India, right? When we had gone out for our third round, so we had done a lot of discussions. None of them were, coming to fruition. There was this discussion that we had, and it was with a firm in somewhere in Central Asia, and they were ready to fund us. And whatever our ask was, they were ready to fund us in entirety. And if we had got those funds, maybe we would have been self-sufficient for like many years, right?
Mhm.
And so that was the good part. Now the other part was that this firm, there was something fishy about it, right? Me and Nishit, we both went into the details. What is this firm? Where is it based out of? Their office? What do they do in the back end? Ultimately, if they have funding, where are they getting their money from? The LPs and everything. And after doing our due diligence, generally the funding agencies do their due diligence, we did our due diligence. We finally found out or got the hint that it's not, uh, they're doing some transaction in the backend which is not, uh, I would say, very legal, right? Or at least
Mhm.
it has a question mark, right? Although the entity that would fund us would have no linkage, but still, uh, it did not feel right. And we
Right.
discussed among ourselves, and finally, Anshumanji, we kind of let it go. And it was our last opportunity to be afloat. And we let it go, and that was that. We had to close the shop. But even today, when both of us meet, right, me and my ex co-founder, we are very happy, because at that moment, at that time, we took up a decision of which we are today also very proud of, and a decision which kind of was a decision about being brave at a very critical point. So this, and I'm very small to say this, but yes, but this is like one of the examples of Bahaduri, right? When you have
Mhm.
to say a yes or when you have to say a no. A very small, I'll take one more small example, and that was with my
Sure.
first customer at Reniso. So, Anshumanji, as I told you, we were running end-to-end property management for people who are living away from the property. So there was this gentleman somewhere in the western part of the world, and he had a property in Noida, and he gave that property to us. He had that property locked for 10 plus years, I think 8 or 10 plus years, because he didn't trust anyone. He gave the property to us, and he said that, you manage it. I trust you and your co-founder, but I only want married couples to come into my property. And we said, okay. And then me and Nishit was scouting ourselves because he was our first customer, right? You have that enthusiasm. We'll
Right.
do it all, right? So we spoke to a lot of people and we found this couple very, very good, matlab professionally very set, mature couple, right? Only hitch, they were not married yet. They were about to get married in 3 to 6 months. And now this gentleman, our owner, he was living far away. He would never come to the property. So we had two things.
Option. Yeah.
One, we have said, ki, boss, we got the best person for you. You know, they are a couple. And they'll keep your property in best shape, and we can guarantee you that. Had we
Mhm.
done that, it would have been a great thing. First customer, and people in West, if they, they live in communities many a times, and if they find somebody good in India managing the property, they tell their counterparts, and trust
Yeah.
builds, and you so many, so much business. But and the second thing, so that was one of the choices. Second choice was ki boss, fine, let's just tell the truth, and let's tell the truth the way we are seeing it. And
Mhm.
if the deal goes bonkers, it's fine. If he doesn't, if he takes back the mandate, that's fine. So we told him, ki, sir, we were looking for a couple, we did not find one. Here's the couple. Me and Nishit both have met the couple. They look like very solid people, right? They are about
Mhm.
to get married, they are not married yet, right? If you feel, we can say no to them, and if you feel, we can try them. And Anshumanji, you will be surprised that the person was so happy with the transparency that he said that not because of the couple, but because I trusted you as a company, and you are being so truthful to me, that even if they are not married now, you just onboard them. I trust you. They
Mhm.
got onboarded, and the funny part is that they did not get married after that. Matlab, their marriage was postponed rather from 3 months to, let's say, 6 or 9 months, whatever. But the owner did not have any complaint. So
Mhm.
these two instances, one, obviously, in the world's eye, was a shutdown on our startup ecosystem, but then we are happy in our heart of hearts. And the second instance is something which kind of gave us more business, where in the normal circumstances it would not have. So this, I would say, is the B for Bahaduri, or the brave, or the righteous fearlessness of going into the right path that your
I
mind or
think,
heart.
yeah, after listening to both the examples that you gave me, Alok, I think it is both Bahaduri and Imandari. So we
Absolutely.
did talk about Bahaduri, we did talk about Imandari.
Mhm.
Let's talk about Zimmedari.
Zimmedari. I would say one of the most important pillars, Zimmedari. And Anshumanji, I'll draw again from that, ancient Indian wisdom of Vasudev Kutumbakam. So, and before I start here, so, everything is connected. The the culture setting that we all have been raised up is that me, the animals around me, the plants around me, the ecosystem, air, everything, water, everything is connected, right? Slowly and gradually, over the years, or over the centuries, or over the decades and millenniums, this connection got lost, and people started to look only at themselves, right? Uh, which I would say the culmination is, let's say, uh, in the societal context, it would be a nuclear family. Or earlier, you might remember, we had the joint family ecosystem. Even earlier than that, there was a saying that it takes an entire village to raise a kid. So that was our level of broadness. Slowly and gradually, it came down to an individual being, right? So Zimmedari, what Zimmedari says is that, whatever I am doing, I do it for four spheres. One is for me as a person, Vyakti. Second
Mhm.
is for the family, which is Parivar. Third is for the society, which is Samaj. And fourth is Rashtra or Vishwa, which is the country or the entire planet. So whatever action I am taking, is it benefiting all the four spheres, right? And in every business decision that I now take, if I am thinking that, is it ticking all the four boxes, then it's fine. If not, then I need to hold. I'll give you an example, and maybe not from my own experience, but let's say if I were to be somebody, an entrepreneur in the garment industry, right, or in the fashion industry. Uh, so let's say, for me, if the clothes are, very are bought again and again, and if the fashion cycle goes down from 3 years to, let's say, 1 year to 6 months to 3 months to 15 days, it's a great thing for me, because more of my material is now, going out in the market, and people are buying very, very quickly and frequently. But is it good for the planet? Maybe not. And
Mm-hmm.
that is right. And when I think of it, and when I just think of the consumption, and when I think that, after this it is just going into waste, and that waste is not being taken care of, and that is why maybe we are seeing, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of shoreline in Western Africa being dumped with clothes, because those clothes cannot be dumped in front of my eyes. And
Right.
secondly, and if I see, because of the profit maximization here, there will be factories and factories where, uh, you know a 2,500 square feet building of 4 floors will house, let's say, 700 employees working for the garment industry. Somewhere down the line, I will rethink that whatever I am doing and the way I am doing, is it beneficial for all? Maybe not. It is not beneficial for the planet. It is not beneficial the way it is happening right now, and maybe I'll take a step back. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the Zimmedari part, right? Maybe then I'll think more genuinely. It will not be a CSR thing, right? I'll genuinely think that, how can I make it more sustainable? Is there a recyclable thing which I can really embed in my garments, even if they are priced a little bit higher, right? And things around that, and maybe it'll work. One of the prime examples that I always quote and I always respect is Patagonia, right? It took them maybe 50 years to be where they are, but the kind of example that they have, kind of set for the entire world is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Now let's talk about Samajhdari,
Samajhdari.
long-term thinking, the inner clarity.
Yes. So Samajhdari, you know, whenever we think in terms of, so that, if I were to say it in a very layman's language, it is transactional versus, long term. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
if I am talking about business, I might, like the example that you just quoted, Anshumanji, you had a very good relationship. You were looking at the employees as human beings, right? As someone who is a part of your family, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
different, that's a long term thinking. Another short term thinking could be, ki I'm just looking them at them as cost centers, right?
Right.
And so the difference is, maybe someday COVID comes, and COVID did, knock at our door in 2019-20. And so there were two sets of companies. One who looked at employees as cost centers, and who took
Right.
no time in firing, a large chunk of their people, maybe after 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line, but they took that step. And then there were other set of companies who were not looking at the employees as cost centers, but they were looking at employees as a human being, right? So they took
Mm-hmm.
the brunt. They sustained for 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, and once that deadly phase was over in the world, these companies, really, uh, grew. So that is the samajhdari part, when I am always looking at the long term for my business, for any action that I am, trying to take. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Great. Great. Sounds so refreshing and so good to talk in these terms. And when you start exploring that more and start trying to place your current businesses towards it, it changes the whole world. Many of these startups, Alok, you know, it is always said that if you really want to be successful in your startup journey or entrepreneurial journey,
Right.
you should have at least two founders, two
Right.
co-founders, starting a company, so
Mm,
that it gives confidence to the investor that if something happens to one guy, there is another person who can still lead the company. Many of the tech founders are 3 to 4 people.
mm,
Now, in that case, when you try to bring in the search of a co-founder for a startup, and one
mm,
of the co-founder whose initial idea it is, if you are trying to build another company,
mm.
how you are going to talk about the biz concept, and not only concept, but biz in action, about
Right.
Bahaduri, Imandari, Zimmedari, and Samajhdari, in
Mm,
finding the co-founder. Because if you have an opposing co-founder, it would be very difficult to implement anything, right?
mm,
So when you start your search, how these ethics
mm.
going to help, not help you, but what are the questions you should be asking, or how you should be testing out a person before you sign them up to be a co-founder with you, or the first 10 employees with you, under the tenets of Bahaduri, Imandari, Zimmedari, and Samajhdari. How you are going to figure it out?
Yeah, that's a tough question, Anshumanji. And why it's tough is that when we talk about BIZS, uh, that is a person's character, a DNA, right? So, some many a times, we try to speak with someone for half an hour, one day, 2 days, right? We can see a part of their personality, but BIZS is something which is very core to the person, right? So and I'll just take a small example here. How I did it for myself is, so the person that I started out with, who was my co-founder Nishit, right? He was a person that I knew for 26 years, and with had seen a lot of ups and downs, and the kind of integrity and the honesty and the fearlessness that the person had shown at various places in school, in his IIM Ahmedabad days, in the other interactions, and that gave me the confidence, and then that gave him also the confidence to see that, for the first part is matching. The
Mhm.
We did not call it BIZS at that point of time. Maybe we are calling it BIZS now. But those
Mhm.
were the basic things which kind of matched first. Then once that matched, then we looked at, what are the other things that, he or maybe I are bringing to the table. So if I am bringing out my expertise on GTM, or my expertise on product, and he is bringing out his expertise on finance and on marketing, so those were the secondary blocks which we kind of fitted in. But so that is one way I would say how, anybody who's looking for a co-founder, because it has to be a long term thing. Matlab, you will really need to spend a lot of time on that,
Mhm.
is what I would say. I would also quote a small example if that helps. So
Sure.
Ritesh Agrawal, the founder of Oyo, where I
Mhm.
worked for some time, for the first employee, for the first leadership employee, which who was Abhinav Sinha, right, who just left, I think last year or last year, after 12, 11 or 12 years there. They spent days and days and months together, right? And only after that, both of them chose that, Abhinav said that, I will join, and Ritesh said, yes, you're most welcome, and let's do it. And that relationship went on for, let's say, 12 years. So that
Mhm.
investment of time is very, very important. And the last part here, I would just say is that, and this is also a mentality, Anshumanji. Uh, Whenever we get resumes, right, and you're an investor yourself, whenever you get pitch decks and whenever we get pitch decks, many a times people just, want to see where is the founder from, which institute, and some other fancy things, and that's it. But if the integrity of the founder, if the what is the type of person, if that has to be found out, it goes much beyond pitch decks, right? So I would just say,
Mhm.
investing a lot of time and practicing it yourself and assessing how the person is responding in those situations will give you the confidence of whether the person is ticking all the four boxes on BIZS. So that
Mhm.
was part one. Part two, so BIZS is an operating system, but this also has a framework, right? And so this is the science. The maths is, so there are 18 principles, right, which come out of BIZS. Maybe if we have time,
Right.
we can discuss about them today or maybe another session. So
Mhm.
those 18 principles help you incorporate BIZS in your life, right? Uh, right. So let's say one of the principles is, and if I'll say it in Hindi and then I'll translate it in English, कि
Sure.
हम अनीति से प्राप्त सफलता की बजाय नीति से प्राप्त हुई असफलता को शिरोधार्य करेंगे. What it means is that I, as a person, if I am getting so-called success by following an unscrupulous path, right, I will not take that up. Rather, what I will do is I will take the path of righteousness, even if that leads me to be unsuccessful. Now, this sounds very counterintuitive, right? But this is one of the principles that a person can ask on a daily basis. Another principle, मैं दूसरों के साथ वह व्यवहार नहीं करूंगा जो मुझे अपने लिए पसंद नहीं. I will not treat
Mhm.
others the way I do not want to be treated myself, right? So
Right.
this comes, so there are these 18 principles. If someday I have time, I'll kind of share also. So, and what I do personally, Anshumanji, is every morning when I wake up and when I do my Gayatri mantra for 40 minutes, I revise all these 18 principles myself. Ki boss, was the first principle a tick mark? Was the second principle a tick mark? Third, I am not a perfect person. I am a WIP. So on some days it is like 70%, some days it's 80%, some days 50, some days it's 100. But eventually, day by day, I'm going into that level, and so that is how I would say
Right.
implementing
No, thank
BS.
you. Thank you for giving that to us. And obviously, as you said, I would like to do another session with you where we'll talk about the 18 inner commitments.
Sure,
And
sure,
we will, come up with examples that helps a budding entrepreneur and a startup founder to lead by example by adopting those 18 inner commitments on a daily basis, and what exercises somebody should do
sure.
to get it into the habit, rather than try to build the muscle memory kind of a thing,
Absolutely,
that आँख
absolutely.
बंद करके हो जाता है. You don't have to
Ah,
really think about it, while you're
right,
doing it.
right.
We will also talk about the practical toolkit for founders, about the
Ah,
value driven startup and how you see that evolving.
sure. So, Anshumanji, to be very genuine and very frank, I would say value-driven founders are the most are the biggest assets for the future, right? As an investor also, I would look at it that way. Now, why do I say this? uh, Earlier, information got democratized 2 decades ago with Google and other ecosystems coming into play. Now technology is democratized, right? So with artificial intelligence, right? And whatever I might want to do, let's say 5 years, 7 years ago, I can do it in much less time. If I just devote some time and energy, right, and learn some tools, I can literally do anything, literally, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if tech is democratized, if information is democratized, right, then the biggest differentiating factor is the person who is driving it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
For example, if we were talking about an idea, right, I can use so many tools now to generate the best of the best marketing strategies or the product strategy and everything, right?
Mhm.
But then the biggest differentiator now is the person who is driving it, right?
Yeah.
And if that person has an element of righteousness, if that person is ethical, then the person will really take it forward. But if the person is not ethical, if the person does not have that element of righteousness, sooner or later, things will go bust. So the way I see it is, Anshumanji, that even in the last 100 years or 50 years, so many units have come up, there was never a better time to be a good human being in the business sense. In the business sense
Yeah,
also, it was always important to be a good human being any which ways. But now, even with the business community, this is going to be the biggest differentiating factor, because rest everything is democratized and will
yeah,
be democratized the way things are going. So, but this thing is as original as it gets, so it will not come under the realm of, let's say, artificial intelligence,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Artificial intelligence, at least, I don't know when it will happen. Certainly, it will happen one day.
Hmm.
But today, intelligence lacks the empathy
Absolutely.
and the emotion. I started my career as a recruiter, and I always say, and then at pitch deck also, pitch deck
Hmm.
doesn't have the personality. Yeah, you can write words, but when you add the words with voice, it has the
Hmm.
emotion, it has the modulation. When you
Right.
add, when somebody is reading that word with video, it can show the empathy, the energy, the excitement.
Right.
All those things can come in there. So one day AI will be there at that point. But you are right. The startup is all about, not about the idea, but all about the founder, that who is leading it. A good example is that you and me trying to do what Elon Musk did with the SpaceX. Who is going to invest in us if we say
Hmm.
that we are going to have you know we'll be taking human to Mars. Now, if Elon does that, checks start flying in without even pitching, right?
Right.
He did raise money to buy Twitter on a text. So, because who you are, how much people have a conviction
Hmm.
in you is when they open their wallet to fund you. So it
Right.
is very important.